Well, I would like to welcome to the Senior Heart Song Summit our next presenter, who is Helen Chang. And Helen is a best-selling ghostwriter. She's an author, a speaker, and an entrepreneur. I love that Helen believes in the power of stories to transform people. I think those of you who were with us just a little while ago witnessed that stories can transform us. Those stories can transform us through books, through audio, through viral media. Helen finds grace in helping people to tell their story so that they can inspire others, make a difference, and ultimately fulfill their own life purpose. Let us all welcome, with a very warm welcome, Helen Chang.
Thank you, Steve. I'm so honored to be here, and Olivia too. Thank you, and all the panelists who are here. The talks have been wonderful and very, very heart-opening to date. So my presentation today is about credibility with a book. Of course, we all want to share our heart. We all want to create transformation. We all want to make a difference and have an impact in the world. And at the same time, you know, it keeps us grounded to be able to attract clients and revenue and have that credibility in the marketplace for whatever it is that we do, whether that is helping people to sing with heart, or having an energy healing, or be able to write and tell their stories like Steve, or sell insurance or sell real estate. So I'm going to share a little bit. I'm going to share a bit of a presentation, which is kind of going to pull everything together with more of a credibility edge, right? But coming from the heart. So if that's okay with you, is that something you guys want to hear? Okay, good. So can you see my screen? Okay, good. Now I'm sort of using this Google Slides, and I need to sort of like get it so that it's big so that you can see it. Waiting for that to load. Maybe I'll just start here. Okay, so this share that I'm going to do is about more credibility with a book, so that you can write your book with more credibility, revenue, and have raving fans. So a book, of course, is a great way to catapult your business, and it's a wonderful way to just go to the next level, right? We all know that books give us credibility. They also help us make a difference in the world. So one of the clients that I've worked with were two young college students at the time, and they started with a book, and they started with what they knew, which was an investor's toolkit. They happened to do real estate investing on the side while they were in college. And eventually this book led to magazine stories, they led to TV shows, and they eventually led to HGTV, where Scott McGillivray now is one of the leading presenters with Income Property and 3 other shows on HGTV, and Michael Saraceni runs their events side. And so I've been working with them for more than 10 years. So a book may seem really small. It could be just your heart message. Earlier, we were talking about Louise Hay. Louise Hay just started her book as a way to help heal people, and she couldn't find any publishers way back then. But a book can help you get credibility. It can help you stand out. It can help you reach people. It can help you make a difference. Of course, it can help you generate revenue, and it can help you become a leader in your field. Now, the thing is that ultra successful people read books. They read it for continuous learning. So if you want to be able to reach ultra successful people, thought leaders, influencers, change agents in your community or in your industry, you really do want to write a book. Warren Buffett, for example, spends 80% of his day reading. All these famous people, very successful people, Mark Cuban, Elon Musk, Oprah Winfrey, all are big fans of books. They spend a lot of time reading and promoting books because it enriches their ideas, their thoughts, right? So if you want to be in that circle, or the next circle of people, of influencers, books are a great way to go. These statistics are a bit dated, but our latest statistics for 2020 show that book sales have continued to increase, ebooks have increased. So there's no letting up to books. Social media is great, but it's very fleeting. Social media comes and goes, right? Other forms, other platforms come and go, but a book says that you truly are an expert in your field. Scott Leese is one of our authors. He wrote a book about sales, and he saw a 500% growth in his business after his book came out. We just did his second book, so that was really, really fun. So this is for you if you want to stand out, catapult your business, publish your book. This is for you if you want to make a difference, if you want to be able to attract clients, prospects, associates, affiliates, even have association with your competitors. If you want to touch industry leaders, grow your tribe, grow your subscribers and followers on social media, and also network and make ambassadors. So this is a fantastic way to do that. And as you know, I'm CEO and editorial director, and we help entrepreneurs to write, design, and publish their books. These are just some of the books that we've done. So, and I really love it. This is my mission, because as with all of you, books are about getting ideas out there, but more importantly, transforming people's lives and transforming the lives of people that I could never touch if I weren't working with people who had those ideas. So some of our authors include Michael Gerber of the E-Myth books, Danny Johnson of ABC's Secret Millionaires, Maurice Sykes, Chad Moretta, and more than 500 authors who have books that make a difference at a large level, but also can change and save just one person's life. And they've been able to do that. So it's just been an honor to work with so many wonderful people who are out there with a mission to make a difference in the world. So would you like to hear a little bit about me personally? So I was born and raised in Honolulu, Hawaii. I like to dance hula in my free time. In fact, I'm going to an event tomorrow. This is part of our music group. I've been writing and telling stories since I was age 5. My first book came out when I was 6 on construction paper, as you can see. I grew up to be a journalist, writing in business and spiritual, holistic topics. And so some of my work has been featured in Business Week, MSNBC.com, San Francisco Chronicle. And then at one point, one of my authors asked me if I would ghostwrite their book. And I was like, oh my God, I've always wanted to write books. Sure, I can do that. I've been writing, I can write a book. So I started writing a book, and I was like super excited. And I'm like, oh, great. Maybe I'm going to write the next Rich Dad, Poor Dad, or the next Think and Grow Rich. And, I'll just make this huge difference. And so I got going, and the marketing team for the company had it all lined up. They had the TV show, the infomercials, all this, the whole marketing machine set up. They're ready to go. All they needed was the book. So I'm like, oh, great. I'm going to get his hero's journey. I interview him for the scenes, the dialogue, how he got started, how he was bankrupt, how he eventually became successful and became a multimillionaire as an entrepreneur, investor, and so on. So I'm like super excited about writing this great American novel business book, right? And so I'm like, yay, I've got it. And I hand in the manuscript. And so I'm in my living room on my phone, kind of like super excited, talking to the marketing director and my entrepreneur author. And I'm super excited. And the marketing manager says, this is good, but it's not marketable. We have to start over. And I think to myself, oh, okay. We hang up, and I do what any entrepreneur might do at this point. I crawl into bed, and I stay there for maybe like 3 days. And I'm thinking to myself, maybe this isn't meant for me. Maybe this isn't my path. Maybe I'm not good enough. I might be an award-winning journalist, but maybe I just can't write books. And so I'm really ready to give up, sad and disappointed and ashamed of how I didn't do a good job. But then I thought, you know what? I promised them that I would do this. I can't leave them hanging. I have to finish this. So I get out of bed. I go to the bookstores. I start really pouring into best-selling business books and best-selling nonfiction expert books and really seeing what it is that makes a book not just impactful and telling a story, but also marketable. And so that happens, and I get the book out, and I'm back in my living room with the marketing manager and the author, entrepreneur, and I'm thinking to myself, oh my God, I hope this is going to be okay. I hope they're not going to fire me. I hope that they'll accept this. And the marketing manager says, this is good. We can publish. And the book goes to publish, and it goes on to publish 5 editions, hundreds of thousands of copies. And when I was invited to a live event that the author had, and he very graciously introduced me as his ghostwriter, people came up to me during the break and said, your book changed our lives for generations to come. And some of them even had tears in their eyes. And that's when I knew that a book truly can make a difference in people's lives, even when it's something that's about business. And so the author told me that that book launched a whole new business division for him that is now worth more than $100 million. He's on his way to billionaire status, so this is just a small stream of income for him. But if your book could be another stream of income for you while make a difference and while changing people's lives, is that something that you would want to do? Why not, right? We can marry our dreams as writers and as entrepreneurs in having books. So this eventually became the Create My Book system that we now offer, where we assist entrepreneurs and visionaries to write, design, and publish their books. And at the end of this presentation, I am going to give you as much as I can. I only have a short time for this presentation, so I'm going to give you as much as I can. Then I'm going to give you a free gift so that you can get started visualizing and planning your book as well. So today, what I'd like to do is cover how to actually plan your book, or the key elements of planning your book, key elements of telling your story, and then some key elements of planning for ROI. Does that sound good? Are you guys into that? Okay, good. And I know that there's so many experts here who do this all the time and know this so well. I just want to share and hopefully have a little bit more nuggets of insight that might catapult you in the process that you have or the direction that you want to go. So, deal? Okay, great. So in our write step, we have 5 steps: plan my book, tell my story, write my book, make my sentences smooth, and dot my I, to go from a plan to a proofread manuscript. So I'm just going to dive into the first 2 in this presentation: plan my book and tell my story. And then, like I said, I'll tell you about planning for ROI. So as you know, writing a book really is like building a house. And you really want to have your architect's blueprint as part of your first part of actually writing your book. And that's creating your book plan, planning your book. So in your book plan, you want to plan for the length of your book. And we have 3 typical lengths that we work with: 88 pages, 120 pages, and 200 pages. And we like to plan a length in advance so that we can reverse engineer the amount of work that has to go into it. It's kind of like, are you building a 1-bedroom apartment? Are you building a 3-bedroom townhouse? Or are you building a 5-bedroom McMansion with a pool and a huge yard? You kind of have to plan in advance. So of course, there's always room for leeway, but that's kind of like what we like to do. The most important part, however, of that plan is discovering your heart message. And this is similar to what Steve does, and he calls it a heart song. And I so resonate with that, right? We need to have something that comes from within us that is a universal message that people can resonate with, that is more than just about the specific circumstances of your story, but is about something within that we can all relate to on a human level. So I'm going to share with you some of the heart messages that our authors have created, and I would love for you to just, put in the chat or say to yourself what you think these books are about. So, live your life on purpose. Guess what that's about? All right, it is about a dentist coach. It's what this coach who helps dentists teaches people, and that's the heart message of her book. Here's another one: bring about consciousness in the world we live in. This is for a financial advisor who helps people with nonprofit foundations. So his whole heart message is about raising consciousness. I bet you didn't know that, right? But you can see how your heart song or heart message is a universal message, regardless of the actual topic, business or not business, right? And here's another one: your life is an adventure of health and independence. This is a cookbook for college students. So again, there's a universal theme here, right? Now, universal messages are really great. Heart messages are really great, but they kind of have their challenges. The challenges are that you can come off as sounding kind of naive or arrogant or even patronizing. Like, oh yeah, that's really nice for you to say, but how do I actually build a dental practice, right? So the key, of course, is to frame that message in a way that people hunger for the solution. They hunger to know how your heart message applies to their solution. Now, these days, as you know, we want the words to make a reader feel loved. How do you do that? How do you write your book so that they get your message? They want to pass your message along and refer your book to other people so that they keep your book and read it over and over again. These days it's super easy to get an Amazon #1 bestseller. There's a whole formula to that. But beyond that 24-hour or 30-day book launch, how do you have that book really stand out over time? How do you get people to want to talk to others about it? Well, here's the key. Your nonfiction book really has to solve a reader's problem. The truth is that even with a fiction book, your book needs to solve an emotional problem that your reader has, right? A desire for adventure, a desire for fantasy or whatever. Certainly with a business book, a nonfiction expert book, you have to solve their problem of how to get to the next level of growth for their business. So if you think about it, if your book tells people how to have a 4-hour work week and make millions, or how to be sexy and crazy while surviving cancer, do you think your book is going to be solving a problem that people want to read? Of course. And these become bestsellers. So one of our authors, Nisa Burns, she's the one with the cookbook for college students that I told you about. This was her heart message: your life is an adventure of health and independence. Now, I'd like you to see how we actually turn this into a solution, right? So kitchen ability is about making food that's easy, healthy, affordable, and delicious. You can discover not only how to feed yourself, but also how to share the joy and deliciousness of cooking with friends. I want to see your kitchen ability as a limitless voyage toward adventure, exploration, independence, and good health. Do you see that? Do you see how all of a sudden a heart message becomes a solution to a problem? I'd love to hear your answers in the chat. Okay, you see how that works. And then here's the reader's problem. Maybe you miss your mom's or another loved one's cooking. Perhaps dorm food isn't satisfying, or you're gaining the dreaded freshman 15, or you don't like to cook. On top of that, you're wondering what you're going to major in and how you're going to support yourself and make your way in the world. This book is for you, the confused, uncertain, busy, frazzled, undernourished, over junk fooded college student. So again, you see how we can see the problem that our reader has and how this book is a solution for that. And now all of a sudden, the book, the heart message becomes an inspiration. It's a limitless voyage of adventure towards exploration, independence, and good health. You see how this like really hits it on the nail for college students? And those of you that have college students for kids, you know, or nieces and nephews, isn't this what they're going through? They're just trying to figure out how they're going to make it in the world on their own, right? So that's how you use a heart message to become a solution to a problem. Does that make sense? You guys like that? Cool. And Nisa went on, she was featured on tons of, this was her launch. I was there. It was so much fun at her launch at Sonoma. It was really, really cool. And then she was on television shows. She became featured on all these different media. It was awesome. So you see how your book, your heart solution, is going to appeal to your clients, your prospects, your affiliates. It's going to help you grow your tribe, your subscriber base, and even your advocates. You guys like that? You like what I'm sharing with you so far? Cool. Thank you so much. Thanks for being here. I really, really appreciate it. And you know, Steve's got such a great lineup of people. I'm just honored to be one of those. So the next thing I was going to share with you is about telling your story, like actually sharing your story. You guys want to hear that? Cool. We've all been through life, right? We've all had history. We've all been through aches and pains. And, you know, I've had people say to me, but Helen, you know, I've suffered so much. How do I turn this into an inspiring story? Well, I'm going to share with you how you do that here, and particularly for nonfiction books. So the second step in our process is to tell your story. And that's sort of like collecting the raw material when you're building a book. Like once you have the plan, once you have your heart message, you start collecting your raw material. And the raw material is your stories. So Jessica Cox is one of our, she's an amazing, she's one of our authors. She's amazing. And she's a Taekwondo black belt. She's an international speaker. She's a certified pilot. And she happens to have been born without arms. So if you notice that, that's actually her foot on that pedal of that plane. And when you can imagine that when we first spoke, I mean, she could have written a memoir that was telling a story about, you know, her challenging life, right? From the time she was born and her mom was crying about having this baby that didn't have arms, to when she was 5 years old and she had to figure out how to tie her shoes, to when she was in college and she had to figure out how to move the television set from her parents' house to her dorm room, going up the stairs when all she had were 2 legs. She had to figure out how to do all of that, right? Well, we could have done a whole story about that to her and a whole memoir and you know, chronicling her success. But her goal was to have credibility. So what we did was we organized it based on qualities of success. Her book is about your formula to success, disarming your limits. So her book is about reaching your dreams, courage, thinking outside the shoe, innovation, having balance in your life, having authenticity, and then having faith, right? So her book is organized by qualities. So we organized all her stories based on qualities so that the story about the shoe is in the innovation chapter. And you know, different stories are in different chapters. So rather than a chronological story, we told it by qualities. And this has allowed her to get tons of interviews, tons of keynote talks and speaking gigs around the world. She's been very, very successful. She's been an ambassador. She's been very successful. It's amazing. So, and lastly, Maurice Sykes, he's amazing because he's an a national speaker in the pre-education field, pre-K education field. And we also organize his book based on the leaderships of quality, the qualities of leadership. And what he said was that because his book was sold in the education field, in different conferences and so on, what happened was that people already knew him, and they knew his stories of his childhood, of his colleagues, of working in pre-K education. They knew him already from the stories of his book. So he already had credibility by the time he walked in to a room. And his consulting business grew by 300% after his book came out. Bart Baker was an insurance agent. I'm not going to go into this. It's a really it's a long story, but he tells his heartbreaking stories about being a firefighter, and then eventually going into insurance. But again, his business grew by 25% in the first 4 months of his book coming out. It's been an amazing. So again, telling your stories, is going to help you appeal to the people you want to attract. And so far I've told you about planning your story and about telling your story. Do you guys like this? Is this good? Is it useful? Right? Can you apply this to any genre of book that you do? Right? Okay, good. Thank you. I'm so glad. You see how we're using storytelling techniques even for nonfiction expert books. Okay, great. So the last part I'm going to share is about planning your ROI, because whether you are an author or whether you're working with authors, the book comes out and it's beautiful. And if it just sits there and it doesn't go anywhere, that's very disappointing, right? So we have to think about the ROI. So you guys want to hear some tips that I've got about ROI? Okay, you probably know most of this, to be honest, but it's always a nice reminder, right? So people often ask me, hey, Helen, this is great, but where's the money? Well, I'm going to share with you how you can get going with that after I share this, okay? So plan your ROI. There's 5 ways to make ROI with your book. Give it to clients and prospects, create free lead magnets, use it for email posts, use it for social media posts, and then of course, give to the media. So you might say, well, Helen, if a book doesn't, a book only can sell for like $10 to $20, and I can just do all these things, why should I even bother with a book? And the reason is because the book is like, a book gets you onto the world's largest dating site for books. The world's largest dating site for books also happens to be called Amazon. And it helps you meet more clients. So Neil Centuria, who's one of our clients, he said, Helen, I really don't want to do that many books. He's a tech entrepreneur and investor. He's had all these businesses that he's done and sold and turned around. And he came out with this book, I'm There For You, Baby, and it's on Amazon now. But he really didn't do a whole lot with it. All he did was give it out free to his clients. And one client took it, read it on the plane. He said, hey, Neil, we want to invest in your next thing. And then he shared the book with 4 other people. And eventually people came in for an investment of $32 million. And they said, not that we didn't really learn that much about what you do or entrepreneurship from your book, but your book told us that we could trust you. It told us who you are and where you're from, and we could trust you. And that's why they came in and invested with him. So it's not just about getting it out there, it's about giving it to people who already are in your circles and in your contacts. Lee Brown had a book, and she used her book to give free downloads on her website and to sell things. And now she gets speaking gigs again around the world and in industries beyond what she started in, which was real estate. Her book is about outrageous authenticity. So she now speaks to all kinds of industries, all kinds of platforms, and just uses her book to promote her. Scott McGillivray and Michael Saraceni, we took their work and we turned it into a year's worth of blogs for them, which they sent out to their email list. So again, you can repurpose your book for lots of things, Melanie and Dave Dupuis. They put their book on their social media and promoted and garnered a lot of potential followers and leads from her book. They did tons of social media posts. Here you go with this book, right? Voting and so on. And then Dustin Hillis, we also help them to pull out quotes from their book and use that, which can be used for like Instagram and stuff like that. Michael Yoshikami, he is amazing. He has just a really small, very tight, credible book. I love his book. It's right here. I don't know if you could see in here, but it's like very small and very tight. But he was able to get more interviews on CNBC and other TV shows. Danny Johnson got interviews on The View and other places. Chad Moretta got on the Timothy Ferris podcast, all with their book, you know. So as I said, you can use books to give to clients as lead magnets for email posts, social media, and media. Now, those are just ways to generate ROI. But of course, your book is for marketing as well. There's like 32 different ways to market, but their book serves as your content anchor, right? It's your intellectual property. It's your branding, right? It's what you are about, and you can do all these different things with it. So we actually have a workshop to plan for 6 or even 7 figures with your book before you even write your book. So I've basically shown you how to plan your book and tell your story and to plan for ROI. Have you liked it? Has this been good? Has it been valuable? Has it been worth your time? Okay, great. I'm so glad, because I really just want to give you value, right? And like I said, this is part of our Create My Book system. And you're still going to need to actually write your book. You're going to need to discover your heart message and, you know, do all the work. But I promised you that I would give you some gifts. So one of the things is I want to give you a free Create My Book Vision blueprint. And so if you go to free gifts, oops, this is an error. Free gifts from Helen, freegiftsfromhelen.com. Sorry, don't get that. freegiftsfromhelen.com. I'm going to give you this. You could just, it's an online thing, and you just fill it out and it'll help you do that. And then if you really want to have like a custom ghostwriting book, you know, you're an entrepreneur with the means for generating that ROI, I'll also be happy to give you an author breakthrough session. That's an hour strategy session with me, valued at $500. And you can go to, actually just go to our website, authorbridgemedia.com, and hit the contact button, and then fill in your material, your info, and book a time with me. So it's authorbridgemedia.com, authorbridgemedia.com. So I hope that's useful, and I'd like to just, you know, open it up to any questions that people might have, and I'm going to answer your questions as best that I can. I really just want to give you as much value as I can, you know, as writers, as entrepreneurs, as creatives in life. So you can either put questions in the chat session, or you can unmute, and I'm happy to answer your questions.
Thank
Hey,
you,
Helen,
Helen.
Go ahead, Steve.
I was wondering, what was when you wrote that first book and you got the feedback that you needed to start all over again, and then you wrote the next draft of it, what was the biggest change that happened between that first draft and the next one?
Yeah, my first draft was focused on his story and his experience, the hero's journey. The problem is it's not duplicatable. To have a nonfiction expert book, you need to be able to show other people how they can duplicate it in their lives, right? So that means having a clear system in place. So I had to get that and integrate it in a way that readers were moved by the personal story, but also could create it for themselves. You know, so I mean, we actually ghostwrite memoirs as well now, and a lot of the difference is that the memoir doesn't have the whole how-to thread in it.
Sure.
It's much more in-depth and seen, right? But nonfiction is about how you create it in your business.
So do you find, are the memoirs as marketable? And what makes a difference between, why would you want to do a memoir versus doing the more of a how-to book?
Yeah, well, in that free gift that I have, create your book vision at freegiftsfromhelen.com, freegiftsfromhelen.com. In that create your book vision, you really look at your goals for your book, right? So with a memoir, the goal is to create an emotional journey for your reader, right? Is to like share with them a movie, right? And to move them and inspire them on a very deep emotional level. Whereas with a nonfiction book, a business book, an expert book, your goal is to attract clients, is to raise your credibility and to have fans. Now, to raise your credibility and attract clients, you want to show them how they can improve their business, their life, their health, whatever, right? So then a nonfiction business book is going to do that better than memoir. Like, remember I told you that story about Jessica Cox?
Right.
Like she could have done either one. She could have done a memoir and she could have done a nonfiction book, but her goal was to speak at huge corporations where people are spending their times in cubicles from 9 to 5. Right? They're not really going to care about a whole story of her figuring out how to tie her shoes or how to go to the bathroom in public places. They need a way to relate it to their everyday working life. So we went with a business expert book format rather than a memoir.
Great.
She didn't want to just be a fascinating person. She wanted to be an expert in the field of success.
So essentially begin with the end in mind that, what is it you're trying to achieve with the book that you're writing? Does it get you from here to there?
Exactly. That's why that visioning and that planning portion is so important, right? And like I said, if you go to freegiftsfromhelen.com, you can get that visioning piece as a gift from me.
Awesome. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I noticed there's some other questions. Jewel, did you have a question? And no, Olivia, you did.
Yeah, Helen had a question, and then Jewel said that she would wait until after Helen.
Olivia had a question.
Okay, great. I'll let you orchestrate that, Olivia.
Absolutely. Helen Snell, the other Helen. Absolutely. Go ahead.
Everyone's so polite. That's wonderful. So, Helen, I wanted to ask you, in terms of your ROI, a common question, I think, with writing a book is, can I actually make money from book sales? So I wondered if you would address that. Is writing a book more of a marketing tool, or can there be an expectation for somebody who's not Jack Canfield or whoever to actually make money from sales of your book?
Yeah, I mean, it kind of goes back to goals, right? And like we have a whole workshop for planning the ROI of your workshop of your book, right? So yes, you absolutely can make money from books. It's a whole strategy. It's a whole plan. And you kind of want to plan that strategy before you write the book so that the book fits what your goals are in terms of sales and selling, right? So absolutely, there's a hunger for books. Amazon sells more than, I can't even remember the number of I think it was 4, I can't even remember the number, but it's just like everybody wants stories, right? Everybody wants book. There's a market there. How do you make your book sell? That's another strategy. That's a whole nother conversation, which is a little bit too big for the constraints of this presentation. But let me just say that be really clear about your goal and then write the book that's going to support that goal.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks, Helen.
And then Jewel.
Hello, Helen. It's been fascinating listening to you, and I love your picture presentation. They're brilliant. So thank you for that. I have 2 questions. The one you've partially answered, I think, already. So bear with me whilst I have to read it, otherwise I won't remember it properly. So the first one is, what are the top 5 errors an author makes in regard to planning their book? And how do you help or enable the author to overcome these?
Okay,
That one
I'm
first.
gonna thank you, Jewel. This is a good question. My question back to you is, what kind of book are we talking about?
For the one that I'm writing, it's a
Is
non-fiction memoir self-help book.
mm,
So it's a
okay.
self-help book based on personal experiences, providing a process to enable people to heal.
Okay, so let me be really, really clear. A
Mhm,
nonfiction self-help book
mhm,
is about providing a process for
exactly.
people, right? It's about providing a process
Mhm,
for how people can achieve a certain outcome. So I'm just pulling out a couple of the books that we have. Here's another one in that kind of category, right? So these are some of the books that we've done, right? So like this one is about an energy healer, and he does a very, very unique form of energetic healing. And we turned it into a process or the elements of energy healing that a person needs to know to apply it. So he has all his personal stories in here and a lot of his client experiences, but it's part of a process, right? Whereas a memoir
just simply telling your story.
is telling your story. And the critical edge in a memoir is the writing style. People
Yeah.
have to feel like they're immersed in a movie. So scene, dialogue, cliffhangers, suspense, right? Driving a story, plot, all of those elements are very important in memoir.
Mhm.
But telling people what to do is not in a memoir. So one of the first things I would suggest doing is being very clear about the genre of your book. Is it
I
self-help or is it memoir?
Yeah, it's self-help.
Okay.
With the people that I've been discussing it with, they
Yes.
refer to it as a non-fiction self-help memoir because of the memoir bit being speaking to your stories, which provide the information for the process. So I know what you're saying. I would say non-fiction self-help from your descriptor, because it
There.
isn't just telling the story, it's teaching people in the process and showing them how I've learned so that they can learn. So it is a self-help one, but I'm using the language that I have been had illustrated to me from professionals in the field previously. Does that
Um,
help? I know what
so
it is.
so so my challenge to you is for you to become the professional, because a
Hmm.
real professional would not call that a memoir. They
Fair
would
enough.
they would know what a memoir is. You don't call that a memoir. It's either memoir or self-help. And the way you know that is you go to Amazon and
Hmm.
look at the categories of books, or you go to a physical bookstore and you look at the section that books are placed in. There is
Yeah.
not a category that's called self-help memoir. There's memoir, biography,
Hmm.
and there's self-help or self-improvement, or there's another term they call it these days. I can't remember. You know what I
Yep.
mean? So that's how you want to
It's
think about it.
reassuring to hear from somebody else what
Yeah.
I've actually said myself. But thank
Yeah.
you for that. Yep. Yep. So
There you
you're in
go.
self-help nonfiction. There you go.
Correct. I'm so sorry. I'm just like trying to organize my books there. Yes, good for
Don't worry.
you. And of course, the self-help nonfiction book is going to contain your personal stories. You have to, right?
Mm,
In order to create that connection. So it's sort of a given.
yeah, exactly. But are the other the question originally was, are what are the top 5 kind of errors that authors make when they're doing the planning aspect of
Right. So
that type of book?
so one is not being clear about what genre or even the topic that they're in, right? So
Yeah.
that's one. Another thing is, for me, it's not planning the length. you have to have a target length, not just, I'll just write until whenever. It's like saying, I'm going to build a house until whenever. Well, you can't do it that way. You have to plan, right? That's the
Yeah.
second one. The third one is just simply the skill, like knowing what goes where, like the structure of a book, right? Like I just did a critical review of a book, which it's got 10 chapters, and the first 4 chapters are all his personal stories. And the method doesn't start till chapter 5, which doesn't work because you're going to lose your readers. We need to have that from the beginning, right? You need to tell them what you're going to give them from the beginning, right? So the structure is a very is a big error that I have. And the last one I would say is simply not having the confidence to finish. And like I shared, like thinking that you're not good enough, right? Thinking that you don't deserve to have a good book, or that you're not a good enough writer, right? But writing is rewriting, right? And once you know the skills, once you know the formulas, once you know the methods, you can do it over and over again. So I hope that's 5. I think that's 5.
That will do the trick. I have a follow-on to the length question for you. I've done courses with people like Brian Tracy, and bless him, he's agreed to actually endorse the book once it's completed. When he's talking about length, he speaks in chapters rather than in pages, because yours were 88 pages, 100 and something, I've forgotten, sorry, and 200 if I remember rightly. And pages is more difficult because I'm used to dealing with the word count rather than how many pages. If you follow
Yeah,
me.
absolutely. I mean, we work with word count as well. It's just that when I'm talking to, say, when I'm talking to a financial advisor, he doesn't know how many words is 12,000 words or 20,000 words, right? But if I say it's an 88-page book and this is what it looks like, that makes more sense. He's like, oh, okay. Or, 120 pages. Oh, this is what 120 page looks like. This is what a 200 page looks like. I can even say, pull a book off your shelf. Oh, that is a thought leader book. Look at how many pages that book is, 200 pages. Then, because if I talk in terms of word count, they honestly don't care. They don't really understand. They don't know. The writers do. We're writers, right? We're in the industry. We know what developmental editing is, content editing is, right? Copy editing versus copywriting versus proofreading, right? We know what all those terms are, right?
Yeah.
But they don't. So I present it in a way that people understand.
Okay. Thank you for clarifying that. It is trying to understand the different perspectives, if you like, that people give you, so that you don't get confused. It's almost like you're giving contradictory advice. So
right. Well, yeah. I mean, we're all writers here, right? We're talking industry language, right? Industry lingo. I mean, I can give you tons of writing terms, right? But when I'm talking to a client audience, when their goal is to be credible, it's a different language that you have to use. You have to talk in the language they understand.
yes, I follow your logic completely. That leads me nicely to my second question, and I promise this one will be comparatively quick. You spoke to being a ghostwriter, and I am curious about how it actually made you feel to be writing a book for somebody else without, admittedly, you were invited on stage and introduced, which is fantastic, but to be writing a book for someone else without any credit or formal acknowledgement, because when you're writing your story, obviously you're writing from the heart, aren't you? When you're doing ghostwriting, it's a different, almost a different set of
it's a
skills
great
in many
question.
ways. Yeah.
Well, you have to understand, I already had tons of credibility because I was a journalist. So my byline was already out there. I had won tons of awards in journalism. I'd won awards from the Society of Professional Journalists, et cetera, et cetera. I was interested in the opportunity of a longer story and being able to impact people in a deeper way. And that first book, my name actually did appear on the book, even though I was the ghostwriter. The author was gracious enough to let my name appear on the book. And after that, I don't really have my name on the book, but I am credited as a partner, an editor, whatever, cheerleader, whatever. So my name always appears. Well, let's put it this way. My company name and sometimes my personal name always appears in the books that we do.
So your feeling about it's the question is irrelevant, if you like, because of the fact that it is incorporated in some way into it. My understanding, you see, of ghostwriting is that you basically you don't get any credit whatsoever. Somebody else writes it, their name appears on it, and there's an awful lot of books out there are ghostwritten.
Let me go back to my purpose. My personal purpose is to make a difference in the world. We are at a very critical time in human history.
Oh, yeah.
We are at a critical time in human consciousness.
Yes.
If we don't change as a humanity, we might not make it. We have a portion of the population, the very, very richest, tiniest percent of the population that wants to flee to Mars.
Yes.
They don't want to invest in solving the problems here and helping people here. They do to a certain extent.
Yeah.
It is critical that we make a difference in the people that we have now. My business is about transforming lives, one person at a time, one reader at a time, one audience member at a time. In the process, I am known, I am not known. We're all going to die anyway. It's not important to me.
That was what I was.
My company's name
interpreting.
My company's name already appears on the book. Yeah. Most of our clients come in through referral. So I have a different motivation.
We're thinking on exactly the same line there, but I was just curious if it evoked certain feelings and how you managed that and managed authors who have that issue and that side of it. But that answer, that's perfectly fine. And yes, I fully understand about going off to Mars. I have to admit, I'd like to go there just to see what it's like. And I was almost going to say, but I don't know about the atmosphere, but that's really a bad thing. But yeah.
Well, so Olivia, I just really want to be respectful of people's time. I mean, are there other people who have questions here that we haven't been able to get to? You're welcome.
There are other people. It looks like John has a question, although it's also time for us to transition to the next presenter. So John, if you've got a quick question, you can ask that now. If it's more a lengthy question, perhaps you can set up a time to talk to Helen and get more personal direction from her.
I was looking at the clock as well. I was wondering about that. I have a real quick question, Helen. You gave 3 different book sizes. I put out a book, whatever it is here. That's the bad thing about using a background, it doesn't show up. I put out a book that's 361 pages. It's an 8 by 10 book. And the largest you can make in a paperback is 400 pages in that size. Do you think that's going to be a marketing problem? In fact, the friend of mine said, nobody's going to read that book. It's a history. It's a history of a town that was developed during World War II.
It's nonfiction?
Yes, ma'am. Nonfiction. It's mostly photographs and newspaper clippings. All I did was I just connected the dots.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't have a chance to ask your questions or stuff, please connect with me at authorbridgemedia.com or freegiftsfromhelen.com. And John, what I will say, I'll give you a very quick answer. Find 5 people that you think is your target audience for your book and ask them that question. and have them give you the answer. Is 361 pages too long?
Ironically, one of the people that told me that couldn't put it down for about 3 days.
Well, then that's a yes, but ask 4 more people.
Oh, I've asked them all, and everybody's had a positive response. I was just curious if you thought there was a financial risk having
I
one
mean,
that big.
you know, Gone with the Wind was what, 1,000 pages. Vikram Seth's book was 1,000 pages. Those were all bestsellers, right? Tribes, Titans, Tools of Titans by Timothy Ferris was, I don't know, close to 400 pages. Those were all bestsellers. So it's not about length, it's about value, right? The reading experience. So
Excellent. Thank you, Helen, so much. I think we are all incredibly well educated from what you shared with us today. And thank you again for sharing your heart message with us. It really came through. And with that, I'm going to end the recording